I've been able to sink a few hours into Tom Clancy's The Division 2, just long enough to start getting a feel for the game. In this video, we're going to talk about my initial thoughts on the game. We'll briefly touch on looks, sound, and story, but spend a majority of our time discussing the gameplay and mechanics. Hopefully this video will help aid you in your decision to purchase or pass on The Division 2. I haven't really played far enough into the game to get too much of a feel for the main story, so I don't have a lot to offer here. I'm still in the character introduction and development stage. The game takes place in DC this time around, with the base of operations set up in the White House, and you're still dealing with the aftermath of the events from the first game. I have found myself getting distracted by the side missions along the way, and in turn coming across numerous echoes and recordings which I do tend to enjoy. Graphically, the game is slightly improved from the first one. I'm sure it could look better, but I generally try to keep the settings turned down to boost FPS and also allow for smoother captures for these videos. Aesthetically, it has that same look and feel that fans of the first Division loved, just in a different setting. Normally, I wouldn't even waste my time talking about a game's audio, but I wanted to take a minute and give credit where credit's due. Whoever was in charge of the sounds knocked it out of the park on this one. The music has caught my attention numerous times, and not just the battle music. I've come across a few NPCs in the world playing acoustic guitars, and the songs that they're playing sound good enough that I found myself just standing there and listening. The guns all sound different and powerful. The double barrel shotguns especially, those things sound really mean. They got that deep thud, I guess. I don't know how you would describe it, but they sound amazing. And different environments affect the sounds differently also, which really adds to the immersion. One mission took place within a studio with walls covered in acoustic foam, and the gunshot sounds died out a lot quicker and they didn't reverberate, just like you would expect to happen in a real studio. And it's the small details like this that definitely earn my respect. Now into the meat of the game, the part that can make or break it, the gameplay. This part will be split up a bit to help keep everything organized. We'll touch on the gunplay, the enemies, the skills and perks, the gear, the missions, and the social aspect. The gunplay feels pretty much identical to what I remember from the first game, with the addition of a new shield system where you can use consumables to regen your shield. If you haven't played the first game, the most important thing to know is that it is a cover shooter. You're meant to move from cover to cover, avoiding damage as much as possible, while peeking out when safe to mow down your enemies. It is not your typical shooter. The combat should be closer compared to that of an RPG, which is what this game is at its heart. Enemies are bullet sponges, and this is intended. Headshots and critical hits are something you should focus on to maximize your damage output. The enemies that I have encountered thus far fit the same mold as the first game. They may belong to different factions, but they function the same. You have your rushers, which consist of shotgunners or meleeers, your standard enemies, which will be using assault rifles and fighting from behind cover, heavy gunners, which tote LMGs and will oftentimes lay down and deploy a bipod and rain down suppressive fire on you. And then lastly, the snipers that sit in the back, and they will chunk you for large amounts of damage if they catch you by surprise. I think this topic here has some potential for a later video where we can delve into the different enemies that you'll come across and how to deal with them effectively. The skills and perks in this game are no longer tied to the different wings of the base of operations, which is an addition that I really like. I didn't like having to level up the different wings to unlock the different skills. In this game, you spend your shade tech to buy the skills and perks, which the shade tech you're going to get as you do the missions or find within the world. 4 skills have returned from the first game, along with 4 brand new skills. All of these skills have 3 or 4 variations that function completely differently. Perks are a one and done purchase, oftentimes a form of passive ability For example, this is where you can unlock a handful of basic weapon attachments. This is a topic that I will absolutely be exploring in further videos, where we'll break down every skill and perk available as well as different builds using them. This game is meant to be a loot fest, and I think that it succeeds in this aspect. You regularly find upgrades and are constantly swapping what you have equipped. One nice addition is low-level gear comes in gear sets now, which gives you something else to consider as opposed to just always equipping the highest level item for the given slot, because oftentimes the set bonuses are much greater than the slight armor or stat boost you're going to receive from the higher level piece. So far, many of the stats affected by gear are pretty standard, such as crit chance, crit damage, weapon damage, etc., etc. I hope at the higher levels to find much more specific stat modifiers to help make many builds viable. This is a problem that many RPGs run into towards the end game. It helps keep things fresh when you find that one piece of gear that makes you strongly consider swapping out one of your skills for another and completely changing your playstyle. Much like many games, the main story missions are what help drive you from zone to zone and help you progress forward throughout the map. I feel like this time around they added many more side quests along the way, and I found myself completing many of these as I moved from one mission to the next. One new type of side mission that was added that's worth noting is the control points. These are definitely worth completing ASAP because once completed they serve as a new fast travel point. The days of fast traveling to a safe house only to have to run blocks to get where you need to be are behind us. The last gameplay aspect that we'll be covering is the social aspect. My experience here is very limited, as I tend to stick to myself in games like this. However, it does seem very easy to drop in and out of games with your friends, as well as complete strangers. Players can request help and you receive a notification. If you accept one of these, it will throw you into their game seamlessly and you can quest together from there. I have not yet explored the Dark Zone, so I have no information to offer there. While leaving the base of operations one time, I did come across an NPC station where you can queue for a new mode called Conflict. I have not yet tried it, but from the description, I'm very intrigued and looking forward to trying it out. It sounds like a small squad-based PvP mode where stats are normalized, leveling the playing field where it should come down to skill. If you have followed me for long enough, you know that I am very much into online PvP multiplayer. That concludes all the information that I wanted to touch on today. All that is left is the matter of should you buy it and is it worth it? I feel like this is a pretty easy question to answer in regards to this game. In many ways, it feels extremely close to the first Division game, so I would say that if you enjoyed that one, then absolutely go for it and pick up the Division 2, and I don't think you'll regret it. However, if you played the first game and you weren't a big fan, there's not really been enough added or changed in this game to change your mind, so I would go ahead and take a pass. I personally love the original Division, and so far I've enjoyed every minute that I have spent in this newest installment. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to stop by and check out the channel. I hope that this video has helped you in some way and you found some sort of value. If you did, feel free to subscribe, and I'll be posting more like it weekly. I also stream on Twitch every Friday, and you can catch me there if you would like to come in and say hello while I'm live. If there is something you would like me to cover in future videos, please don't hesitate to leave a comment and I would love to touch on it. With that said, that'll do it for today's video, and I hope you enjoy the Division 2 as much as I have been.
No sign of Malik from up